Welcome back to the Odyssey Academy for lesson number 2. And in lesson number 2, we're going to talk specifically about what you will actually do in Odyssey of the Mind. Lesson 1 was about what the OM program is, and lesson 2 is all about how you are involved, what role you play in OM, and what's expected of you and your team. So to do that, here's our agenda for the day. Again, we're going to start with an introduction about what you're expected to do in OM. We'll talk about working with the team, how OM incorporates teamwork into the problem or the program, with whom you cannot work, right? So if it's okay to work with the team, is there anybody else you can't work with? It turns out there are people like this. So we'll talk about what that means. It relates to the next point, which is what is outside assistance. So we'll define outside assistance and explain what it means in the OM program. We'll talk about what is expected of you and your entire team working together. And then finally, we'll kind of button up this introduction series with how Odyssey Academy will continue to work from this point out, now that we've gotten the introductions out of the way. So to start off, what you are going to do in OM is solve one of 6 possible long-term problems. Now in lesson 1, I introduced you to the 6 categories of long-term problems. You are going to choose one of those problems to solve this year. Then once you start solving your problem, you come up with your ideas, you're going to write an 8-minute skit, like a little play that showcases your solution, right? So all your ideas will be incorporated into this 8-minute performance that you have. You will then create costumes, props, backdrops, anything that helps your solution come to life, right? So that's expected of you as well. You're going to solve one spontaneous problem. Remember the 3 parts of OM: long-term, style, spontaneous. So you're going to solve one of those problems that are a surprise problem. Perform your solution. Now, you have an option this year in 2020, 2021. So if you're watching this in future years, maybe it's different. But this year, you have the option to perform your solution in person if it's safe to do so following the global pandemic. But if not, you can also record your solution and submit it online to compete virtually. So you can compete either way, whatever is safe, where it happens to be when competition season rolls in, which is typically around spring of the following year. So 2021 in this case. If you want, you can compete, right? So again, you can develop your solution, perform your solution. You don't have to compete if you don't want to. We encourage it because competing teaches you so much about sportsmanship and competition and appreciating the ideas of others. So we would encourage you to participate in the competition if you want. Most teams do. Probably 99% of OM participants wind up competing in their competition, but you don't have to. So I just want to make it very clear that if you want to do all these modules and do the solution and learn, that's great. You can do that. You're not obligated to compete, but we strongly encourage you to do so because you've done all the work anyway. You might as well show off your cool ideas. Now, here's the best part. I keep talking about you as an individual, but Odyssey of the Mind, turns out, is a team sport, right? So you can work with a team to solve your OM problem. What does this look like? Well, your team can have up to 7 people, including yourself, right? So if you're one person, you can have 6 other people, right? That makes 7, and no more than 7 people. All right, so that's the golden number, is up to 7 people on a team. Your team can be friends from school that you know. They could be your siblings, so maybe you have a brother or sister in the house that wants to do OM with you or solve the problem with you. Maybe it's kids in the neighborhood, other friends you have that are about your age that work with you to solve the problem. That's also a possibility. Now, the other cool thing is you can work together in person if it's safe to do so. Again, we're filming these during a global pandemic. In future years, hopefully that won't be an issue. But if not, you can also work together on Zoom or Skype or FaceTime. You can work online remotely. You can even solve and present the full solution virtually. So you don't have to actually get together with each other for safety reasons. So depending on what the status is of the world while you're working on the solution, just know that there are a lot of options for working with others this year. And like I said, you can also solve the problem on your own if you want, right? If this is just something you want to do to complement your other classes you're taking right now, that's fine. You can totally do that. As I said in the previous lesson, we've had finalists at World Finals that are single people who come together and solve the problem on their own, or come to World Finals on their own to solve the problem, and it works just fine. So again, it's nice to have a team because we really encourage teamwork in Odyssey of the Mind. Most people solve Odyssey of the Mind problems as a team, but if you can't find a team, that should not prevent you from doing OM because you can still solve the problem on your own. All right, now, with whom can you not work? Well, it turns out that only you and your team can work together to solve your problem. So once you have your 7 team members, that's it. Nobody can be changed or replaced. You can't add an 8th member or 9th member. Nope, That's it. Now, if you lose a team member, say they stop participating in the program, then fine. If you had 7, now you're down to 6, then it's those 6 people that have to compete. If you never had a full list of 7, so maybe you started with 3 people and you can add on a 4th person, a 5th person, that's fine, up to 7, but then you have to stop. So again, key number, the 7 people on your team are the people that should be solving the problem. Mom and dad then are not allowed to help, right? Not at all. Your teachers, it turns out, cannot help you. They cannot give you the solution. Your siblings and friends who are not on your team, also not allowed to help. All the ideas that go into your solution and all of the building, the costumes, the props, the backdrops, all of that must be your idea or your team's idea, right? So all those ideas, all those props, backdrops, everything, all the tangible elements of your solution must have come from the 7 team members and nobody else, all right? Hopefully we're clear on whom you cannot work with. Now, anything else, any ideas, anybody putting something together for you or building something for you is what we call in OM outside assistance. And outside assistance is so important, it gets its own slide. So here's the idea. Outside assistance is any help at all whatsoever coming from members, other people that are not members of your team. All right, so that includes, like I said, mom, dad, brother, sister, friends, teachers, anybody who's not a part of those 7 people on your team. Any ideas coming from them, any help of any kind is what's called outside assistance. So in this case, it's not no children allowed, it's no parents allowed, no teachers allowed, none of this, right? They can't have their ideas be a part of your solution. Now, here's the important distinction. Mom and dad can teach you new skills, right? So maybe a parent teaches you how to sew. Maybe a parent teaches you how to hammer wood together. Maybe a parent teaches you painting techniques in general. All of that is fine. And in fact, we encourage it. We want parents to be actively involved with their kids. Same thing for teachers. We want teachers to be teaching new skills in general to the students. What we don't want is mom and dad or the teachers or other adults or siblings that aren't on the team looking at the problem, solving the problem, and doing it for the team members, because then the learning doesn't really happen, right? Another thing that's important is you can go talk to experts about what they do. You can talk about their skills, their craft, their trade. So if you're doing problem 4, which is the structural problem that requires you to build a balsa wood structure, you should probably go talk to architects, right? Talk to architecture students at university, talk to professors of architecture, and try to understand the basics, the general idea of architecture. Why is the triangle the strongest shape? I think it is. Other principles of architecture that would be helpful that then you can then use as tools to solve your problem. So see the difference? In one, people are doing the work for you or giving you the ideas, not okay. The other, people are teaching you general skills that then you can use like tools in a toolbox to solve your problem. Totally fine, right? We encourage this. This is where the learning happens over here, right? Now, as these 2 points state, only you and your team can write your skit. Only you and your team can build your solution, your costumes, your backdrops, and so on. And only you and your team can actually brainstorm ideas. So you can't even use ideas from mom and dad or architects or whatever. All the ideas need to be yours. That's the key idea of outside assistance. Now, why do we care about this? Why do we make such a big deal about it? Remember, at the heart, Odyssey of the Mind is an educational program, right? We want you to learn new things. And here's the deal. If you don't do the work, you don't do the learning, right? If you brought your math homework home and mom and dad did it, or an older brother or sister did your math homework, guess who's not learning how to do math? Right? So same thing in OM. If you want to learn how to be more creative, how to do better teamwork, how to build backdrops, how to sew, how to make costumes, how to be funny, how to make vehicles, whatever you're trying to learn in Odyssey of the Mind, the way you learn how to do that is by doing the work yourself, right? Again, you can talk to experts, you can get general tips from mom and dad on how to do things, but they can't be the ones that are actually solving the problem for you. Now, it also keeps the competition fair, right? You're going to be competing against other students your age, right? We'll talk about how that works in competition later, but elementary school kids only compete against other elementary school kids. They don't compete against high school kids or college kids because clearly that's not fair. And the reason for this is high school kids and college kids have very different skills. They've taken shop, they've been in plays than students who are in elementary school. So the moment we start letting other people do the work for us, then suddenly the competition isn't fair for the teams that actually did the work themselves. So just keep that in mind. That's kind of the spirit behind it. So here's the deal. You get to go to mom and dad and your teachers and your friends and say, hey, listen, like, I know you really want to be a part of this cool OM program, but here's the thing. Only I can solve the problem with my team. Just the 7 of us or however many people on your team and nobody else. If they want to get involved, Wonderful. There are many volunteer roles that parents or teachers can play in OM, and we'd love to have them volunteer. If your siblings or other friends want to get involved in OM, awesome. If your team's already full, guess what? They can start an OM team. So introduce them to the series of videos and get them involved in OM so they can have just as much fun as you can, but they'll solve their problem and you will solve yours. So that's very important for OM. Now, here's what's expected of you and your team. Now that you're together, you are going to write and perform an 8-minute or less skit. So you have 8 minutes to present your solution and you do it in sort of performance style. That also then includes any props, costumes, backdrops, and other elements that are required for your problem. You are expected to make those as well. That includes other scored elements for your long-term problem. So for some problems like vehicle, technical, structural, in the vehicle problem, guess what? You're probably going to be making some vehicles. In the technical problem, you're probably going to be making some machine or technical device of some sort. So those are extra things in those particular problems that the team is also expected to produce. You're also going to develop a unique style for your long-term problem solution. Now, I hinted about this in lesson 1. I kind of introduced it. We're going to have a whole lesson dedicated to style later on. But remember, style is the extra stuff that's not necessarily asked for in the long-term problem that your team wants to do to kind of create a unique feeling, look, or theme that makes your team stand apart, right? So that's an expectation of teams as well. You're going to work together to brainstorm and create ideas. That's a big part of what OM is all about. You're going to perform your solution either in person if it's safe to do so, or virtual if it's not safe to do so, or if your local association has a virtual option. So just check your local association. We'll talk about this in a later video as well to know whether or not your competition would be an in-person competition or a virtual competition. Again, we're recording this in 2020 when there's a global pandemic. In future years, if you're watching this series of videos, it may be back that we're only to in-person. Traditionally, OM is an in-person competition, but just know that for 2020, 2021, you have the option to compete virtually as well, just for the safety and well-being of all participants, and so that you have a cool program to do while you're learning from home. And then finally, it's expected that you complete all the Odyssey Academy lessons, right? So if you start from lesson 1 and go all the way through lesson 15, as I said, that's going to take you from point A to point B. And if you're solving your problem, your long-term problem simultaneously, or you can come back to watch the modules as you're solving your long-term problem, it's really going to help give the clarity and understanding of the program that you need in order to make sure you complete your problem successfully. All right, last but not least, you need to read your long-term problem from top to bottom. We're going to talk about that in the next lesson, and what's called the OM program guide, the Odyssey of the Mind program guide. The Odyssey of the Mind program guide is available for free as a PDF at www.odysseyofthemind.com, and the program guide is the official rules that every team participating in OM must follow. So reading it from A to Z, from start to finish, is super important to be successful in the OM school program. So you might want to take a pause right here, pause the video, go call some friends, have them join your OM team, tell them it's really fun. They can do it from home. It's really cool. So if you want to take a break, go do that. And now we're going to move on. Okay, so how does Odyssey Academy work? How does this series of videos work? Well, here's the deal. There are 15 total videos that are going to guide you through the OM program. What you're going to do is you're going to watch each lesson, and we're going to check our progress at the end of each lesson to show the skills we've acquired and the kind of key takeaways from that particular lesson. Along the way, you're going to learn some new skills, right? So we're going to talk about creativity. We're going to talk about how to brainstorm. We're going to talk about comedy writing, all these things that are general tools that you can use to solve your problem. Now, remember, in the background, you have to be the one solving your long-term problem. I'm not going to solve it for you. I'm not going to tell you how to solve your long-term problem. What I'm going to do, back to our conversation of outside assistance, I'm going to give you the tools, all the things you need to know to use to solve your long-term problem. But ultimately, developing that solution is up to you and to your team. I wish I could help, but unfortunately, that's against the rules. So you're on your own, but I'm going to do the best I can as your virtual coach to make sure you're prepared to solve that long-term problem successfully. So it's up to you to apply your new skills and solve your long-term problem. The other important thing is you and your team to set deadlines and keep up with the modules to make sure that you're finished on time. Now, what does that mean to be finished on time? Well, some of you will choose to compete in your local regional or association tournaments, which is fantastic. As I said, we encourage you to do those competitions. If that's the case, say your competition is in February of 2021 or is in March of 2021, whatever it happens to be, you can look on the state websites to find out. Then if you know you have to be ready to perform your solution by that point in time, you might need to backwards engineer a little bit to know exactly when you need to have things done to make sure you're not scrambling at the end to try to get your solution finished, or in the worst case, you're just not ready to compete because your solution is not done. So think about setting deadlines deadlines, creating your own calendar. Again, I can't do that for you. That would be outside assistance, but you and your team can do it, and then make sure that you have your solution completed on time. So progress report very quickly. Do you understand what you have to do in OM? I hope so. Do you understand what outside assistance is? Who can actually solve the problem, who can't? And number 3, do you understand how this particular virtual class will work? All right, the series of videos. From our little checklist, now we know what's to be expected of you. And it looks like the next lesson is going to be about what a long-term problem is. So I'll see you for lesson 3 next time.